Welcome back to Ghoul Time. Okay, if you haven't seen our last Halloween video, the link will be in the description. Today we're going to talk about stories that have happened to us and our family. So I will go first. I used to work at a place and there was housing up above in that building. I was in the office and people could stay upstairs. And it was the winter and no one was there. I was by myself that day. I did not like being by myself. Of course, my imagination tended to kind of run wild with me, knowing that there was like 30 rooms, empty rooms upstairs. This building was huge.
It was big.
And it had like 6 entrances, and that's just the ones I can think of right now. So I was in there, and I was walking out kind of to the utility sink, I guess, to wash off my lunch dishes. And as I was over there washing my hands, I heard something upstairs. And anyone knows what it sounds like if you've been in a building and you're on the main floor or whatever floor you're on and you hear someone above you walking. It's just that slow kind of soft creak sound that's like that. And I heard that. That's probably like one of the most like scaredest moments I ever had in my life. I was horrified. I was like actually frozen in place, and I was trying to like really listen and think, is that really what I think I'm hearing? And if so, what's the explanation for this? There is no one here besides me. I was so scared. So I was froze, and then I was like thinking, move, Cordy, move. You got to get into action and move, because if there is someone here, they're not supposed to be here, and you've got to get out of here. So I guess I went to the office, which was, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away, 18, 15 feet maybe.
Probably 20.
So I walked back over, grabbed my purse, got my keys. I didn't turn anything off. I left. I went right outside, got in my car, and was like, lock the doors. And I'm thinking, what's my game plan? I really shouldn't leave work, but I don't want to be in there by myself. So I think I called my boss and kind of told her the situation and said, I'm just really not comfortable being here by myself. And after that, me and the maintenance man went upstairs and looked in every room to see if we had seen like remnants of someone who had like broke in or anything like that. Never found anything. But they did often joke that there was a ghost, like of the original founder of the place who was upstairs. It wouldn't have been impossible for someone to go around the top side of the building, go in one of the doors upstairs and be upstairs and me not know it. That was totally possible.
Well, and there was a few times where I would be there with you and I heard stuff like that, and I would know we were the only ones in the building, or even if the boss was there, if all 3 of us were downstairs and we heard that.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was terrifying.
Yeah, it always spooked me out.
I know the difference between a building popping and groaning and like creaking. That sounds like someone's upstairs.
Yeah, that's creepy.
So that's very scary. Next story that I'm going to tell happened, this was years ago, way before I even knew Austin. And it had snowed here, and it was a big snow. So the first day, Mom and Dad went out above the creek, up behind the creek, to walk in the snow by themselves.
And they left us here.
I don't know why we didn't want to go. The second day, we all went, and then Dad started noticing these tracks in the snow, and he was like, okay, that's kind of strange. And the more we went, we noticed that these tracks like cut every trail that we went. So those tracks had obviously followed us, because we went the same route that they had went. So the tracks had followed them since we weren't there the first day. And then Dad thought about it, and we were all kind of sketched out, like, is this a mountain lion that's been following us? Because that's what the tracks look like.
They were like cat tracks, yeah.
Cat tracks, and later on he did kind of change his mind and think it was a bobcat, but
whatever it was had been following us.
Yeah, it was following us, so that was pretty sketch.
And watching us, which is like scary.
Yeah. So what are your stories?
All right. Something that you just said made me think of a story when we were coming up with what we were going to say. Number one, while we were talking about cats, several Christmases ago, I was the only one awake. Everybody had fallen asleep. Dad was sick. He had like the flu or something like that. He was really sick. And everybody was asleep. It was only like 9:30. I was gathering my stuff to take a shower. And I was sitting in my room on my bed. And all at once, I heard the scariest noise I have ever heard. I was inside, the noise was outside, and I knew I was safe, but I was so scared. It was like a woman screaming bloody murder, like somebody dying, like just some terrible horror movie on crack kind of sound. I was terrified, and my first thought was, it's the neighbor's dog, and she's definitely dead. Something has got her. Coyotes have circled her. That happens sometimes to dogs around these parts because there's a lot of coyotes. And so immediately I thought, I wonder if I'm the only one that heard that. So then I started going around to see, and I looked in Mom's room. Mom was asleep. I looked at Corey's room. Corey was asleep. I looked on the couch, and there was Dad, because he was sick, and he was sleeping on the couch. And I run in here, and I shook him, and I said, Dad, wake up. Dad, are you awake? Did you hear that? And he rolled over, and he looked at me. And I can't remember what he said, but it was totally incoherent, total nonsense. He had a really high fever. It was clear to me that he had no idea where he was or what was going on, and that he had not heard what I heard, and no one heard what I heard. But I was so scared that I jumped in the shower, got out, and I slept in the bed with my mom that night. I was too scared to sleep alone. And so later on, I started thinking, come on, what could that have been? And I think it was the next day when everybody woke up when I told them what I heard. And they were like, oh, Katie, come on. And Mama was like, you don't think it was a painter that you heard, do you? And I was like, I don't know about that, you know. But I looked up, I YouTubed what they sound like, and that was spot on. That's what I heard. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt in my heart to this day that that is what I heard. And so everyone's like, well, that's stupid. Mountain lions aren't there. I know what I heard. And I have heard about other people seeing sightings. And in fact, later on, my cousin who lives down there, where I heard the mountains will kind of fool you about sound, where sound's coming from. But where I thought I had pinpointed the sound from inside the house, I told my cousin like months later, I was just casually mentioning it, and she gave me a story that corroborated mine, that one night she came home from worked at a gas station, it was late, locked the car up, headed up the sidewalk into her house, and she heard the same thing, but it was a lot closer because she was outside with it. And she pointed in the same direction. So spooky, freaky, creepy, but it was cat-like, and it just, woo, one of those, your skin crawls, and my skin still crawls thinking about it. So that's my one story. My next story about something else that happened to me that was pretty much the opposite. It was very positive, a good feeling. It wasn't a scary, skin-crawling, bad feeling. When I used to work at a place, I was in charge of an archive, like archival collections and materials and objects that were in that archival collection. And the founder of this facility, of course, was long since passed, and I had some of her belongings in my care. I was responsible for caring for some of her personal belongings that were going into a display at the facility, and she had a tea set, and I was responsible for cleaning the tea set. And I thought, well, I know a lot about metal, and this is a silver tea set. I know I can get this cleaned up. So it wasn't hard for me to figure out how I need to clean it up right and make it look good. And then I was transporting it to where it was going to be on display. And I thought I could drive it, but I was like, I don't want to take any risk of it clattering around. I'll walk it. It'll be safe if I set the tea set up how it's supposed to be and then walk it to where it's going to be on display. So it was a beautiful day. It was sunny. It wasn't too hot, but it was just a really pretty clear day. And I had the tea set, and I crossed the road. I had to cross the highway, and I was on my way to take it where it was supposed to go. And all at once, it was not a windy day. It was a very quiet and very still day. And the wind started blowing, and I was like, that's weird. The wind hasn't blown all day. And this must have been like early September, something like that. And I just got this feeling that somebody was right behind me. Must have been touching me right behind me. And I whipped my head around, and I didn't see anybody. I wasn't scared. The hair on the back of my neck didn't stand up or nothing like that. But I just felt this really strong feeling that somebody was watching me or with me. And the wind was blowing. And it was a really positive, like a radiant positive feeling. And I think it was that tea set. I think it was the woman who owned that tea set, knew I was touching her tea set, and knew that I was transporting. And I think she came to give me a visit. And she was a very sweet woman who did a lot of really good things. And I think that was her positive energy that was with me. And I was like experiencing her through her tea set. Because to this day, I've never, usually when you feel like somebody's watching me, that's a really negative. But it was just like all of a sudden I was flooded with just this like warmth. And like, oh, so nice and so pleasant and happy. And I just really felt like somebody was behind me. I think it was her spirit through her tea set, and maybe she was pleased that her tea set hadn't been that clean, you know, because this was an early, probably late 1800s, early 1900s tea set. So, very sweet, very opposite of the creepiness of the cat. Those are our stories. Now you're going to hear from some of our family and their stories. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and don't get too scared on this Halloween. Ghoul Town.
Okay. So you could call this story The Night There Was Almost Murder on Sesame Street. That would be one title. But anyway, this happened in the mid or late 90s, somewhere in there. And round about that time, your mom and dad had built their house just up the hill from Granny's house here. And it was still pretty new. And believe it or not, we at that time, me, Pap, and Granny, we didn't have satellite television. We just had an antenna. So you could just get one channel, and there was not a whole lot to watch, very little to choose from. And of course, your dad had moved out here from Haywood County, and from Canton, that area, and Waynesville. Back about that time, almost every weekend, or maybe every other weekend, Matt and Tipper would go back out there. and they would stay with your Grandpa Tony and, you know, spend time out there. And so they knew I didn't have anything to watch, you know, TV-wise, so they would say, hey, we're going to be gone if you want to go up to our house and watch some TV. And, of course, they had all kinds of channels. So I would do that a lot. I'd go up there and watch movies and just, you know, whatever I could find that was on. And I'd done that quite a bit. And one night I went up there, and it was pretty late at night. I'd say it was maybe around 9 o'clock or so. And another thing that coincided with this time frame of this story was right about that time, Eric Rudolph was a fugitive from justice in this area, and you had the ATF and the FBI and all kinds of agencies like that looking for him. And he was believed to be in this area, and in fact they found I guess a pickup truck that he had been driving near Hughes Road, which is that way maybe 5 or 6 miles, 6 miles or so. It's off of Martins Creek Road. They found a pickup in that area that he had been driving. And then if you go up the creek, like a lot of your videos that you have on your channel and Tipper has on her channel, if you go up the Stamy Creek and you keep going all the way up through there into the Stamy Cove, Robertson Cove up in there, eventually you'll come to Jack Top and things like that. And there's some houses. There were even houses up in there back in those days. Probably no telling how many now, but some of those had been broken into. Could have been anybody, but of course everybody around here was like, wonder if that was Rudolph. Wonder if Rudolph went in there, you know, to get out of the cold, or wonder if he went in there looking for something to eat or what have you. But anyway, on that particular night, I walked up the hill, you know, to Matt and Tipper's house, went around to the side of the kitchen, stepped up on the little platform porch, and as I was reaching to take a hold of the kitchen door and open the door, I noticed the door was not closed. It was standing ajar about that far. And they were gone out of town, and I thought that would be really weird that they would just leave the door open. I'd never found it that way before. And just as I was kind of standing there contemplating the door being ajar, of course all the lights in the house are off, the house is totally dark, I hear what sounds like footsteps going down the hallway. And it wasn't really loud. It wasn't like somebody stomping. It almost sounded more like somebody trying to go down the hallway undetected. So I'm standing there, pretty confident I just heard somebody walking down that hallway. So I just back off of the porch, come back down the house, and I was thinking, that may be Rudolph. Rudolph may be in there. So I came back down to Pap's house and got one of his Model 37 12-gauge shotguns, put probably like a number 4 or number 6 shot shell in it, and started back up there. Came back, of course the door's still ajar. I've got the shotgun ready. Push the door open with my foot. I'm looking, I'm listening. Kind of look to the right in the kitchen, I don't see anything. Looking straight ahead, I don't see anything. Walking real slow through the kitchen, listening. Approaching the hallway, about to look down the hallway. And in your living room, where your heater is now, at that time, you guys were just little bitty kids, little toddlers. You had a huge toy box over there, just piled full of toys. And unbeknownst to me, there was one of those toys that was motion activated. It happened to be a Big Bird doll. So as I come to the head of the hall and I am turning to look down the hall with the shotgun, over here behind me, Big Bird says, "Peekaboo." And I wheel the shotgun around, and unlike a pump shotgun, this one has an exterior hammer, the Model 37. I didn't have the hammer back, or I probably would have shot Big Bird with a 12-gauge shotgun. But I whirl back around, I see nothing but the toy box, and then my mind finally catches up to, okay, that was just Big Bird that spoke to me. My heart was up in my throat, and check out the rest of the house. There's nobody there. There's not a soul there. I turn on the lights and sit down and start watching TV and try to calm down. But I don't know, maybe somebody was in there and they left in the time that I came back down to Pap's house and got the shotgun and went back up. It would have been very easy for them to just come out and disappear into the woods. But that's the story of the night I almost killed Big Bird and almost had a heart attack.
Several years ago, Matt's mother was here visiting. She lives here now, but at that time she still lived in Black Mountain, North Carolina. So sometimes when she would come to visit, whether we visited there or she visited here, one of our favorite things to do was to go yard selling. We love to ride around and look for yard sales. We're big on buying things at yard sales and thrift stores. We just love the treasure hunt. You never know what you'll find for a good price. And that day we headed up, I think we'd found one in the paper or something, and we'd headed up towards Andrews. Well, on the way back we saw a sign, so we followed it. But this was on the old road, not on the 4-lane, on the old road that goes along by the airport. And we followed the signs, the yard sale signs, till we finally seen the house in the distance. And it was a great big old house, really old and really big. And I got all excited because, of course, I was imagining old canning jars, granny's quilts. I love old things, so I was excited to go to this one. It had a very long driveway, just straight though, so you could see the house all the way along coming up on it. Well, when we got there, I think I was in the back seat with Corey and Katie, and Matt was driving and Miss Cindy was up front. I just practically pushed Corey and Katie out of the way so I could hurry and get out and go look at all those treasures I was going to find. And there was probably about maybe 10 people there looking at stuff. There was other people there at the yard sale. And they kind of had it spread out all over the yard in front of the house, kind of in a semicircle or a horseshoe kind of shape. And so I was going along looking and seeing what I could see. And I began to feel something really eerie, like someone was staring at me is what I thought. And I thought, oh, I bet there's someone in that house in one of those big windows. So I looked up, looked at all the windows. There was no one there. No one was watching me. So I continued to make my way around looking at all the stuff. And you know how all those little hairs on the back of your neck will stand up. So I was getting really spooked. I didn't know why. Everybody else was just looking and talking among themselves, and the other people that I didn't know that were there and buying things. And I just kept until I made it all the way around the circle, but kept feeling that unease. And then I turned around to look to see where Matt and the girls and Miss Cindy were, and they were headed to the car. I could see them walking to the car. So I just kind of thought, I gotta get out of here anyway. I don't like this feeling. So I was glad to see them going to the car. And so I went ahead and run down there and got in the car with them. And I thought, well, I'm not gonna say nothing. That's so silly for me to say that I got scared at a yard sale, that I felt something strange. And we were going down that long driveway back out towards the highway. And we just went a little bit, maybe, a few dozen yards or something like that. And Miss Cindy said, well, I'm glad to be gone from there. And Matt said, I am too. And I was like, oh, you felt it too? You felt that weird feeling? And I don't remember if it was Miss Cindy or Matt, but one of them said, something bad happened to that house, or something bad's about to happen at that house. And I totally agreed, and I was glad to be gone from there. And that was one yard sale that I would never want to go to again.
It's been probably, I don't know, it's been a good while, 6 or 7 years ago maybe. It was me and my sister. It's when I still lived at home in Buford. There was one evening Mom had gone out to Walmart, and I was just sitting at home with my sister, and she calls us, says, hey, I forgot my purse at home. Can you run it over to me? So we're like, okay, sure. That's no problem at all. And so we're getting loaded up in the truck and everything and getting ready to go. We're heading out of the neighborhood, and where we live is kind of, how do you describe it? It's kind of a side road off of the main highway there, and it's kind of a semicircle, and there's like 3 different neighborhoods that shoot off of that semicircle. Well, we're basically in the middle one, so we're heading out of the neighborhood, we turn right, and we're going towards the main highway, and as we're passing one of the other neighborhoods, the entrance to one of the other neighborhoods, me and my sister are both looking, and above one of the houses there is, for lack of a better word, a UFO just hovering above one of the houses. Now, I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm not, that type of person. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but me and my sister both saw it there, and then as quickly as we looked and saw it, it was gone. Like, faster than anything I'd ever seen before. And me and my sister just stopped, looked at each other, and said, "Did you see that?" And she's like, "Yeah, I saw that." I was like, "Oh, well, all right then." So, and it was weird. It was, the weirdest part to me about it was that it is exactly how people describe it. And I hesitate to even tell this story to anyone because they'll think I'm crazy. But it happened. I saw it. If it was just me, I would have just kind of written it off as like, oh, whatever, I didn't really see that. But it was me and my sister. We both saw it. So, we saw it. But what's weird about it is it's exactly how people describe it. What I saw, or what we saw, it was perfect flying saucer, what you would see. It's a perfect circle, lights on the bottom, just sitting there. It was pretty decent size. I mean, it looked anyways like as big, like its circumference was, pretty equal with the house, I guess you could say. And like I said, as quickly as we saw it, it was gone. And it's just weird, just one of those things, definitely, and I've always said this ever since I saw it, me and my sister both said this, we're not saying it is aliens by any stretch. There's obviously no way of knowing that. My best guess, educated guess, is that it's some government thing. I have no idea. I have no way of explaining it. We have no way of knowing what it is, where it came from, why it was there. But that's basically the story. That's really all there is to it. We drove on to Walmart, and that was it.
The kids always like for me to tell stories about things that happened to me when I was growing up. And one time we lived up on the hill above my uncle's house. And Mama run out of potatoes. And she sent us to my sister's house, which was quite a ways away. I'm not good with a fourth of a mile or a third of a mile. I'm not good with measurements. But anyway, she sent me and James to get the potatoes. And we started back with us. I guess it's like 2 pecks of potatoes in the bottom of a tow sack. And I would carry the potatoes a while, and James would carry them a while. And that way both of us didn't get so tired. So we come around the corner of my uncle's house, and something made a noise, and somebody stuck their head out from behind the window shade. And we thought they was all gone from the house because they was fixing to move to Michigan. And I said, "Here, James, you take these potatoes." And I give them to my brother. And I got in front of him, and I went up that hill as fast as I could go. I stumped my big toe on a tree root. Man, it hurt, but I kept right on going till we got home. And every time my uncle would think about that time he scared us, especially if there was many people around, he'd have to tell that story. And he'd say that sack of potatoes was standing straight out from James's back. We was going so fast up the hill. And he'd have everybody laughing. More than once he told that story.